The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Paranormal Concept right here on Parasearch UK Radio with your host, Paul Rook.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this marvellous edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and on today's show we are joined, as always, by the lovely Kerry Greenaway. Hello, Kerry.
Good evening. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine, thank you.
Cool. Have you been doing up so much this week?
Well, it's always Tuesday. You always ask me this on a Tuesday, so it's like it feels like I have to do a extended over the weekend. What have I been up to?
Well, yeah you do.
You pretty much over the weekend, you know. And then I just watched a documentary that you say.
And how did you find it?
Oh God, it was good. I am a little blown away right now. I've literally just finished watching this, and I am a little blown away by this documentary right now. And I loved it. I've absolutely loved it because it just sums up so much in one documentary, and you don't even realise it till the end. And I just love it.
I've got good taste in documentaries, really, haven't I?
You have. I mean, literally finished watching it when Paul Skyped me in, and I was like, oh my God, that was awesome. It was really, really good. The documentary we're actually talking about is actually on a Netflix, and it's Wreck of the Unbelievable, and it is literally, oh my God, it's just brilliant. And it's what we're talking about tonight.
It does. We are discussing lost treasures.
We are, and there's a lot of them.
Oh, there is. But then that's exactly what this documentary is all about. Lost treasures.
It certainly was.
So, and as you've only just watched it, and I watched it ages ago, do you want to just sort of like refresh everyone's memory of what it's all about?
Okay. Well, right, basically, it's a documentary. So you go into it believing it's a documentary, and they find a statue that's brought up by some local fishermen. And so the guy goes and gets backing and manages to get the artist Damien Hirst to back the exhibition. Now, it's done very seriously, it's done very credibly, it backs it up with historical facts, and has got lots of people on there with very fancy titles that are put on the screen. So, like, this is Dr. John Smith, do you know what I mean? So, and he's the lead of the dive exhibition, and it goes through while they're on the ship and what they're finding, and then they bring up this amazing haul of artifacts off of a ship that's supposed to be Roman, and they've got, as I say, all the legends and myths around this tale, and they're really excited, and it's acted perfectly. And I'm going to say acted, right? Because by the end of it, and I kind of don't want to spoil it for people.
Okay.
But by the end of it, it's based on belief. It's based on believing the facts that are put in front of you without you looking at it further. And by the end of it, you will understand why I'm not going to spoil it for you, because you have to go and watch it. But he says things throughout, Damien Hirst says some really integral things throughout the documentary. And it's so relevant to today, where people just watch things, take it as read from documentaries, you know, things like that. We take things as read, and without questioning, it's like, oh, well, they say he's a doctor, professor guy from so-and-so university with these credentials. You just believe that because it said so on the TV.
Yeah, but then it's the same as books, though, isn't it? I mean, if some doctor brings out a book, I don't know, about time travel, you just naturally assume this geezer knows what he's talking about.
I know, but I think it showed how easily people can be fooled, and how he said, and I'm going to quote this: "History is written from fragments, and belief lies between fragments." So feed enough of a story. This is where it ties into the lost treasures. Feed into a story, whether that be from a fragment on a pottery or a scroll, or a papyrus that they found that references some form of treasure, and then it leads you on. It's that belief that there is that treasure that can be found, and the lure of that treasure is just so blinding to other facts.
Yeah. I think that's why these sort of TV programs, documentaries ones, particularly in style, are quite popular these days.
Oh, very popular. I mean, God, you love these kind of programs, Paul, to be fair. I mean, come on. You sucker right into them, you?
For very different reasons. It's not about the gold for me. I just gold's boring, and they just annoy me as well. Because the TV shows are centred around treasure hunters. And that bugs the life out of me, especially, like, for example, and I know you're going to roll your eyes now, Oak Island.
Oh, God.
Because you've got these treasure hunters, and all they're interested in is in gold. Now, I personally don't believe there's any gold in these vaults whatsoever, but they keep insisting on drilling down boreholes to try and find these vaults, and they're destroying all the archaeology that's down there.
I just
because they're
think
looking
one
for
day,
gold.
I just think one day that whole island is just going to like implode. I don't think. I think it's a very, it's a very repetitive programming, and they never find it. Yeah. They don't find much, do they? Not really.
They find little bits and pieces, but it tends to just be enough to keep people's interest.
Yeah, it's a money-making TV program.
Well, there's that as well, but then you've got lots of different layers. I mean, you've got the Spanish on the island. You've got American Civil War. Knights Templar, Roman stuff. They've been like discovering as well.
That they told you.
Like, well, yeah, that's true. But it's like, what the hell is going on?
This series we found a Roman penny. Next series we found a Spanish galleon. Do you know what I mean? That's the only problem I have with programs like that, is particularly with a long running. I mean, go find something great. Do you know what I mean? But like now they've added a level of danger, even more danger, because we've gone from Oak Island to Snake Island. Do you know what I mean? It's becoming more Tomb Raider by the moment.
Absolutely. But I think because obviously with the popularity of Oak Island, the makers of Snake Island was like, do you know what, we can do one better and we'll actually find the gold now.
Well, maybe a little bit, or so they made you believe.
well, that's that. But I mean, if it is to be believed, you've got a bunch of guys running around this Snake Island looking for a cave. They find this cave, and they discover some drawings on a stone. The best way of describing it, and it basically led them. I think they overlapped it with a star system, which led them.
Because that's important, right? Because with the link in your head, automatically you're linking to Egyptians.
Well, it led them anyway, and they kept following clues to find the gold at the end of the rainbow. That's essentially what Snake Island was all about.
I was thinking about this. To be a treasure hunter, to have the resources and the knowledge, like an Indian, it's so ingrained in our psychology through our media. You know, it's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. It's oh God, you know, like when I was looking at this, there were so many references to, you know, like to our media culture, what we've books we read and films we watch and stuff like that. Sahara Desert was one, or the Sahara, that was a film, wasn't it? And, it's all about that treasure hunt. I'm going back to the 80s. What was that one? King Solomon's Mine or something?
King Solomon's Mine, yeah.
So when you start thinking about it, this adventure of solving puzzles to find amazing treasure at the end of it, it's like, it's the leprechaun and the rainbow, isn't it? It's like the pot at the end of the rainbow. Yeah. Will you ever find it? It's that constant quest.
Even like National Treasure, I think that's probably the most recent movie out there that's treasure hunter-esque. That was quite interesting as well. And that was like American Civil War and all that. John Wilkes Booth and Lincoln. That's how that started, actually. Yeah.
But it all links into a conspiracy theory that ties into non-fact, that people have pinned one tiny fact on and believed it and run with it and not actually checked it. And do you know what I mean? It all ends up being, and it's like modern day mythology with that, isn't it? It's like conspiracy theories these days seem to be more today's mythology building and legends building. I mean, you talk about the Confederate gold. Yes, they haven't found it, but the latest explanation for that is just one of many different explanations for it. No, but the bottom line is nobody actually knows what happened to it definitively, and that's where it allows this room for it could be somewhere. And if it is, it's worth taking the risk and putting the finances in to find it. And I think if you believe it, if you believe what you're seeing, because clearly you can't, because I've just watched something which I was suckered into all the way through till right at the end.
Well, that's it. I mean, with the Continental Gold, that was on the Curse of the Civil War Gold, which is a spin-off of the Oak Island. Mm-hmm. Because someone approached Marty Lagina and said, we've got this basically story we want to follow up. I believe there's gold on the bottom of Lake Michigan. We haven't got the resources to find it. And, I'll give him its dues. Marty turned around and said, well, if you can prove to me that it's there, I'll help fund it. So they basically started off the story at the site where what was the American president's name at the time?
Jefferson.
Jefferson Davis. That's the guy. When he was captured, they apparently he had 6 carts full of gold and silver with him.
That's easy to cart around, right?
But only 3 were recovered.
Yeah.
So there were 3 went missing, allegedly. And the rumours that went around at the time was that the 4 of the regiment that captured Jefferson Davis buried it to come back and find it later. So what they done, they looked at the area and thought, well, the best place to hide it would be there, and there. So they just searched around in that land by metal detectors, and they actually found a few gold and silver coins, which would indicate that someone had buried a little bit there and taken it away and just left the odd 1 or 2 coins. So that sort of fueled it a little bit more. And it just went on from there, really. So
they found a few coins, but not what they wanted to find, right? They could have been dropped.
Exactly. So
just could be coincidence.
They could have been dropped.
Could have been coincidence.
Yeah, they could have been.
Or
Absolutely.
Could be just enough that the production team left them there, so it spurs you on to wanting another series.
Exactly, and we got another series.
But these tales are nothing new, are they? There's so many different lost treasures out there that it's quite crazy. I mean, gosh, there's caches of treasures everywhere, guys. I think we should all give up our day jobs on this one, because there are so many. We could all split into little teams and start sorting out our own lost treasure quests. Oh, I like that idea.
But to be fair, I mean, you see in the news, especially quite recently, actually, that where a lot of people are discovering hordes of treasures in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Metal detectist enthusiasts in particular.
Yeah.
I believe a few years back there was a hoard found in Southend.
There was. It was
a
a Saxon king, wasn't it? In
Yeah.
Southend. I can't remember all the details on it because they took it away. They whipped it away quite quickly. I can't imagine why they did in Southend, to be fair. Quick, we better move it out. Let's put it in high lockdown, guys. Let's get Southend. And they actually did a road. Where they did the road layout, they actually had to redo it so it didn't interfere with this archaeological site. You can go and visit it. It's the other side of Southend in Prittlewell.
Okay, cool. Well, you know where
Well
it is.
done,
So we'll
Mark
go
D.
down.
10 points, gold star, and a Merriam badge. We've got a few people in the chat room. So good evening, everybody in the chat room. They're coming up with little facts and everything. It's great. So
excellent.
But
Fantastic.
yeah, and these sites, when they do find them, are huge archaeological important, aren't they? They're so important because
They are.
They're so rare that we get these kind of things in full without it being plundered. Do you know what I mean? Or in ruins. Then you do. It is hugely. It's so important. But I think what is harder is when you are trying to do that underwater.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, see, this is one thing that because I've always been. I've always liked the archaeology stance when it comes to these sort of finds, and this is what I was saying this before the show. That's what bugs me about these particular treasure hunter shows. I mean, going back to Oak Island, when they bore down holes into the vaults and stuff that they're looking for, they're damaging the archaeology that's in there. Mm. Just imagine all the history that they've just ripped to shreds.
But it kind of suggests to me that then there is none.
Well, I mean, I know obviously through on the TV documentary they were pulling out bits of parchment with paint on them, which would indicate a book of sorts. Now, they've just literally, I mean, if that is an ancient manuscript, they've just ripped it all up.
Well, then they're the worst kind of people. I'm not being funny. If they're not looking to preserve the history, it's not.
But then treasure hunters, they're just looking
for the archaeology, are they? They are literally just treasure hunters.
Yeah,
so
and that's what bugged me.
So there's a responsibility there then as well, isn't there?
Yeah, but again, later on in the series, the Canadian government turned around and said, "Look, you can have the extra permits, but you need to have an archaeologist on your team." Mm. And if they deem the site of archaeological interest, they are to take over. Mm. Which sort of addressed that issue, but the damage is already done, I think. You know.
I think so, particularly on that particular island.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, when you look at some of the other cases of like lost treasure, I have to say you do kind of think, I don't blame them for wanting to see what's in these places. If they find like a tomb or something, I don't blame them for wanting to excavate it and look at the archaeology, but it has to be done correctly. Because
yes,
like, if
definitely.
you look at they found a temple. Now I'm going to the pronunciation, mate. Right, so I apologise in advance. It's Sri Padman Abhaswamy.
Yep, that's it.
It's in India. Yeah. Now they found a treasure trove in 2011, and they called it Vault A, and there was like loads of stuff in there, beautiful stuff, statues, whatnot, not. But there's another vault, but they won't let the Court of India people won't allow the second vault to be opened until the first vault has been, documented and like catalogued properly. And I think that's really wise to do. Because it's doing it properly. You're documenting it. You are taking, the historical importance into account before you then go, oh, yeah, look, great treasures. Oh, more treasure. Could do, straight off again to do that. It has to be done, in my personal opinion, this is. I mean, what do I know? I'm no archaeologist. But if you are going to find places of historical interest, like, if they really believe that there's something on Oak Island, I really honestly think they would be going about it a hell of a lot more carefully. It suggests to me that they know there's nothing there and they're not that bothered, and it's great for a TV show.
Yeah.
That's what it suggests to me.
The place has been excavated for like 200 years previous. So
I think you might have found something. It's been dug over so much, the chances of anybody finding anything is a miracle, right?
Absolutely. As you said, it's just going to implode one day.
It's just going to go, I'm going to go back to the sea now.
Yeah.
Lord.
Oak Island will just turn into Acorn Island.
So that's why I think that's why, because I don't think anybody would. I think there would be a huge outcry if like academics and researchers and like those kind of people honestly thought there was something there. They would not be allowing them to go in with their bulldozers and boreholes and swamp drainages and then do you see my point on that? That's what I think.
Definitely.
I just killed the dream of Oak Island, haven't I?
No, I've sort of, again, as I said to you before, it's not the gold hunts that interest me. It's the history that they can come up with, and if they can back it up with evidence, that's what I like.
But they're never going to do it. It's a good old history tale. It's a good old put facts towards you to make it an interesting tale.
Well, they do it on the other one, the Curse of the Civil War gold. They get loads of historians coming in with little bits of nuggets of facts for them.
But like I said to you right at the top of the show, I said to you, right, that I sat there, watched this documentary in all good faith, didn't know what it was, didn't really, just watched it. And I got bought into that. And they were backing it up with historical facts. I don't know if these historical facts are true or not. It sounds credible. I've got a professor person telling me it's true on my screen. And then it's about that point of belief, isn't it? It's all about that point of belief.
But then you could, as I said, you could say that about anything. Because history is literally written by man, and it's not always documented at the time.
No, it might be documented, but it's documented from a specific perspective. Usually, the winner.
Yeah. And it's what they want you to know at the end of the day.
Pardon?
It's only what they want you to know.
Of course it is. It's going to be the bit that shines you in the brightest light, isn't it? It's not going to be like, and then we kind of was a bit sneaky, and then we did this to them, so that meant that they couldn't have that. And then we were really double-crossingly sneaky and did this. You know what I mean? People aren't going to write history like that. It would be funnier if they did.
The history books are not infallible.
No, this is true, and you can only build a picture of history from fragments, which we said this at the beginning too, and build up an educated opinion.
Yes,
I would say on this. Is that where we're going with that?
Yeah, we'll stick with that. That sounds good. That's quite accurate. So what other treasures have you? Well, not found, should I say, in your research?
But I didn't find them, anybody. I just didn't. I thought the one... there's quite a few, as I say. There was a lot more than I thought. Got to come home ground, though. We've got to talk about a good old King John, haven't we?
Yeah, go on then. Talk about King John.
Now, King John, obviously, one of our English kings, he reigned from 1199 to 1216. Now, he wasn't a very good king, this one. He was known as the Bad. He was a very nasty character. Liked gold, obviously. Had a lot of it.
I think kings did.
I could almost see him almost like a Scrooge type figure, this king. In fact, the Disney character of King John is brilliant.
I think that's probably where they got the idea from, I reckon.
Now, in October of 1216, King John travelled to a port in Norfolk. He became a bit poorly with dysentery. Lovely. And then decided to journey back. So just to be on the safe side, he took a slower route around the area, dubbed the Wash.
Okay.
Right, now this is like a very, very... Oh, excuse my children screaming in the background there. It's not a very good area to do it, really. So he did this, and then the tide came in, and it's a well-known story, and King John's treasure went down with them. King John went on a slower route, missed this, but his baggage train lost, never to be found again.
Ooh, let's do that on a road trip.
What? The Wash?
Yeah, we'll look for his gold.
We'll get Richard out there with his metal detector.
Yeah.
While we sit on the
Sounds
beach,
good.
shout orders at him.
Yeah, you missed it.
You didn't sweep over there, Richard. Don't worry about the water, it's only knee high. But it's one of those notorious places where when the tide comes in, it comes in fast. And before you know it, you're cut off and you're stuck. And it is very notorious for that. But it has never been seen again. So it's there, we know where it is, so it's not actually lost. But it kind of is lost because we don't know exactly where to get to it. And because of where the location is, it's impossible to try and excavate anything.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Which is a bit of a shame on that one.
It is. It's our very own Oak Island mystery.
You know what? No, I don't think it would be funny at all. But it would be interesting to see if I don't know. There must be. It must be a regular spot for old, metal detector people to go with their metal detectors, just on the off chance that you found something. Because how awesome would that be?
I don't know. The only metal detectorist I know is Richard.
No, I think there's a couple of others I've got on my friends list that do that.
Yeah, but if anyone's going to know, it's going to be Richard.
True.
So maybe
true. That's true. But I reckon if you were sitting on, I reckon it must be one of the main areas for people to be metal detecting. It's too tempting.
I do think though, Norwich and Norfolk in particular is supposed to be like the country's best place for metal detecting.
Why?
Because you've got all the Vikings and all that sort of stuff there, haven't you?
Yeah, but they found that in Southend, right? It could turn up anywhere.
Well, yeah, but it's not a million miles away from Norwich and Norfolk and stuff, is it?
It must be quite a thrill, though, when you are doing, whether it, large-scale treasure hunting, like, some of the tales we've heard about over the years, to just doing metal detecting and then finding something. It must be.
Absolutely. It's like, woohoo!
I think it would be a little bit more than that. Depending on... See, the other thing is mudlarking. Have you heard of this concept?
No.
Well, it's like the River Thames. You can go on the mud flats, but it's actually regulated. Not just anybody can just go down on the mud flats, particularly around certain areas, because they're of historical interest.
Yeah.
Like just outside the Tower of London, when the tide recedes, they have people doing mudlarking, and you're not allowed to dig at the tide, at the mud or anything. You can only pick up what you see with your eyes. So if you see something in your eyes, you pick it up, that's fine. You can't dig it out, as it were, from what my understanding of it. And around the Tower of London, because it's tidal and it washes in and out, they're always finding new stuff.
Yeah.
From so many different eras, and it's fascinating. But if you do find anything on the Thames, I do believe you have to register it. I think it's protected. I believe they're protected sites, or there's certain areas that are protected sites along the Thames. in London, that stretch, because of the historical value of it. So if you're going to do that, just be aware of that. You probably need a mudlarking license or something. It's called mudlarking.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
It does, doesn't it? Larking about in the mud, I suppose.
So that's lost treasure that comes to light, isn't it? After like hundreds of years being under the seal.
I must admit, I found clay pipes along the river when I was a kid, because I grew up literally in a town on the edge of the river, and there was a particular place we called the beach. It wasn't a beach at all, really. It was just a little bit of stone on the bank of the river. But after the tide had come in, you'd find clay pipes a lot. So I used to have a good collection of those. They're not
who made those? Were they Roman or?
Oh,
Dutch?
Mainly Victorian, Georgian and Victorian periods.
Oh, okay.
So they're not that old. I mean, they probably do go back further, but the more common ones are Victorians. So, yeah, I mean, as classed as treasure, I suppose, in a way.
What's the old saying? One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly, yeah. But you can get them in antiques shops and things now, so...
This is true. You get most things in antique shops, including haunted dolls.
Yeah, wrong show, but...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, dear.
Oh, my God. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Even in Egypt, right, when you think of Egypt, I always kind of thought that they'd sort of like found everything. They'd sort of excavated it, but there's still a hell of a lot they haven't discovered in Egypt, isn't there?
There probably is, to be fair. I mean, it just gets washed away in the sand dunes, doesn't it, and stuff.
Gets covered over in the sand dunes, don't it? But they haven't found Queen Nefertiti yet, her tomb. I thought they'd found that. I was shocked about this.
I thought they'd found that.
Well, I did check. I quickly checked, I would like to add, because I was like, I'm sure they found Queen Nefertiti. I'm sure they did. But apparently not.
Okay. I know, King Tutankhamun, I know they found.
Yeah, but they think, because he died so young, that wasn't actually supposed to be his tomb. That was her tomb. Because his tomb is actually relatively small, so they think that there's another chamber behind where Queen Nefertiti is buried, because there's a story, a legend, that she changed her name and became like the warden because he was too young. And then when he was of age, he took place, she stepped down. Then when she died, she got put in her tomb, which we now know as, Tutankhamun's tomb. And then he died really young, didn't he? He was like the child king. And when and they were like, oh God, we weren't ready for that. What we're going to do with him? We've got to put him in a tomb somewhere. We ain't got one built yet. And so they said, oh, put him in with his mum. And that's why his tomb is actually, I know that sounds a bit bizarre, but this is what I read anyway. And this is why his tomb is so small. That's what they think. But they haven't looked into the other tomb yet. So they think they know where it is, but it's an undiscovered treasure.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. That'd be interesting to see what they find when they open that other one then.
Well, that's if it is there and it is true. Because there's so many tales of supposed to be chambers underneath the Sphinx and a honeycomb of tunnels from all the pyramids which make an aqueduct, which gives it credence to a theory that it's actually a giant battery that was insulated and would power something like a power grid or something. I don't know. That's a different documentary series that I'm watching.
Oh, you're doing well on the documentaries at the moment. But no, I do remember that them discovering the the water channels up by the pyramids, and they were also thinking that it could be a way that they were built to help aid moving the big stones about. I don't know. but then maybe those tunnels had a different use for them as well.
Maybe, but it's all conjecture because we don't know unless we had an Egyptian pop back into the future and say, "Oh, you're doing it all wrong. You've been making up lots of weird stories about what this all is. It's just some pretty shapes we decided to build in the, in the desert."
Exactly, and they'd have to come forward in time because travelling back isn't possible
yet.
At all.
Right, so in the chat room, going back, it is... Right, let's have a quick look back. Oh, Mark D says King John's treasure was a lie. It doesn't exist. Ooh. It was a lie. It's a story... Its story was an invention by the Catholic Church to cover their actions in his death. See, there's a conspiracy right there.
It is, isn't it?
You got two versions of the same story. Which one's true? Probably the one that Mark D's talking about because he's a lot more knowledgeable than me on this one. Oh, it's all documented in the Brutes of England, which was made to disappear by the Germanic historians to support their religion. Okay.
Well, no, that makes sense. I can go with that.
Mm-hmm. Richard's saying, yep, he'll do the wash. East Anglia was the richest part of England in medieval times, hence all the treasure finds. Well, yeah.
Yes, that's pretty much what I said.
Exactly. And Richard said he would like to see the moat of the Tower of London excavated. I wonder what would be in the bottom of that, actually. Yeah, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? I'm sure Time Team must have tried or got in there or did it.
I don't know. I know they've done the river.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the tower.
I don't know. Anyway, and Mark says you have to report any possible historical find to the Portable Antiquities Scheme, regardless where you find it, and you have had to have done so for almost 20 years. So, yeah. So you do have to report all treasures. But then I would imagine any of the big treasure hoards that you find, if you just find that accidentally, you wouldn't even know where to start with that, would you? You would have to call in the big guns.
See, because I'm not moving in those circles anyway, I don't really know. But my dad, he's a metal detectorist, but he goes to a specific club. And they arrange to go to farmers' fields and stuff like that to do their digs. But if anything's found, my dad's got to give it to the club secretary or whatever, and then they go and register it and
register the right channels to do it.
Exactly. So I know that there is a set protocol, but yes, I wouldn't. If it was me just walking along the beach and I found something and picked it up and I'd be like, oh, look, Roman coin, that's in my pocket.
But I think what that shows though is that there's a lot of paperwork research that you do before you even get to the point of going out. You must, you can just, I suppose this is a bit like the paranormal field, isn't it? You could just like trawl out anywhere and hope to God at some point you're going to catch something somewhere. But to distill your chances down, to narrow it down a bit more, you would actually do your research to find out, the legends and tales if there is any lost treasure, and read books and do the historical research first and try and piece pieces of the puzzle together so it narrows your search area down. The same as if you're going out looking for a ghost. You don't want to you could go out anywhere. We all have done. We've all gone to the local alleged sites of scariness. And then, but if the reoccurring ones or the ones that have got really strong ghost stories or whatever, they are the ones you kind of gravitate towards because they also seem to have like a basis in history. So it's the same sort of thing, isn't it? It's piecing together those bits of the puzzle to try and come up with a logical story and searching.
I mean, if you're doing something like metal detecting, then you'd want to metal detect where you think you're going to get the most finds. Yeah. So I mean, like for example, what Tyler and he sort of moved across the country with like an army, didn't he? Of people. and he sort of settled every now and again. But you'd need to do your research to find out where those places were.
Yeah,
you'd want a metal detect in those areas as opposed to the areas that you walked through, because
it's just walking through it. Just because you pass through it, it's not going to be there necessarily. So it is a paper trail to start with a treasure hunt, isn't it? And there's one of the biggest paper trails of all time is the Holy Grail.
Yes, definitely.
See where I was leading that conversation there.
Yes, with the Holy Grail, I'm more inclined to believe the whole Da Vinci Code theory.
Are you swaying towards like it's like the blood of Christ, not a physical item?
Yeah, it's the bloodline of Christ. That's how I believe it.
There is, well, allegedly. Bearing in mind, we haven't actually gone out to the archives and done work on this ourselves, so we're only going on what we've been told. It does seem to, not the Da Vinci Code per se, but that theory does seem a possibility, shall we say, a good possibility.
Well, it just stands to reason it's logical as well.
But Dan Brown, that's another one. You brought Dan Brown into this, sorry. He's another one that is amazing at putting facts towards you in a logical order that then makes it so believable that everybody bought into that, the Da Vinci Code, that they actually, yes, okay, it was based around a story of a professor and Robert Langdon and following the symbols and blah, blah, blah. People do this, though. You know, there are people that are following this line of thought. But Dan Brown is very, very good at bringing lots of little facts together and building a story out of historical facts and tying a tale and weaving an adventure into that as well. He's perfect. He's done that. Out of that has born a million Grail seekers trying to. They even book onto tours to do the Da Vinci Code walk and go and visit all the places that were highlighted in that in those books. You know, Angels and Demons and stuff like that. He's done an amazing job at that, and that is exactly what history is. Is it just pulling together all those parts to make a logical story? So it leads you down a road of where this treasure could possibly be. And so the Grail is one of the main ones of these, isn't it? It reoccurs year after year, even in the Monty Python film.
Absolutely, that was one of my favourite films, actually. But no, even Adolf Hitler, he was a very keen treasure hunter for the religious artifacts. He was on the search for the Holy Grail. So glad he didn't find it. Indiana Jones found it, though.
Wow, as long as good old Indy, wholesome American lad, Now, there is another thing I want to bring up, because Mark's actually brought up this in the chat room. Andrew Collins, do you know who Andrew Collins is?
I vaguely remember the name, but no.
He's a writer that wrote a series of books, and he's got an ongoing research project, and he uses a technique called psychic questing to find objects. And, you know, he's absolutely, captivated by this. Graham Phillips was his sidekick at this, and they got involved in this particular psychic questing, and they had some amazing results of that. And God, Mark, I want to talk to you about this off air, because this sounds so fascinating in its own way. It just sounds awesome. But to find lost treasures that were buried in the landscape, and we're not talking great big hoards of treasure, we're talking maybe a sword or a ring or something. And again, but using psychic questing to do this, you know, following links that were being given psychically to a group of mediums at that time. And they allegedly found some amazing things. And he writes about this all the time. He's absolutely fascinating character in his own right. And again, it's all about that quest, that looking for treasure, for linking into the landscape and, you know, looking at what's in front of you and joining the dots to see if you can find something that somebody hasn't seen for hundreds of years.
But isn't that almost, without the psychic bit, isn't that what archaeologists do anyway? They look at the lay of the land. They look at things that are not particularly normal in the landscape.
They do, but where do you start sometimes? And the links come through from there. And yes, I agree, treasure can be information, not just physical gold objects or, physical objects. Treasure can be information too. You've only got to look at the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm off on a roll now.
Go for it. It's interesting, though.
It is, this is the whole point, isn't it? When they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, just like a cave. Just a cave. They found the Dead Sea Scrolls in a cave, and that was so full of information. And they found the copper scroll there too. Oh my! I just find these things fascinating, and then I go, am I blind faith believing this just because I've read it somewhere? Do you know what I mean? Just because I've read Andrew Collins' book, I've met him in person, I believe him, but then, or am I just being taken for a ride? It's a pure piece of fiction that ties into my belief systems, and that's why it hooks me. That's why it pulls you in. I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would love to go to the Vatican.
Oh, the Vatican vaults.
There. Yeah, and look through them. That would be absolutely fantastic. But can you imagine the secrets that are down there?
It would take you forever to have a look through. And just
it would, wouldn't it?
It would just take you forever. And to be fair, it's one of those where you get down there and you look around and you think, well, where do I start? And there's a hell of a lot of boring stuff in there too, like, papal records of what they spent on the rosary or the statue of this, that and the next. Do you know what I mean? But it would take you years. Years.
It's probably just a bit of paper going April Fools or something on there.
It's supposed to be phenomenal though, isn't it? But even that has brought up, it's got a whole legend surrounding its own, the Vatican vaults. It sounds... And again, you go back to the Dan Brown thing. Now in your head, that's what you're imagining the vaults to be like, and ancient manuscripts of all kinds, and secrets within the books and stuff like that. It's probably not. It's probably some dusty old cellar that's not particularly well, cut.
I would have thought that's. Yeah, I mean that's how to be honest, that's how I would have pictured it. Not somewhere very well kept, just dark and dingy. Just chuck their books down there, sort of thing. I don't think it'd be as grand as the Vatican above ground.
Well, who knows? Who knows, indeed, right?
Yeah, but it'd be fascinating to go down there just to see what there is.
But you can't. It's not open. It's not accessible to anybody. It's special permission only. It's a special permission only, and that's only if you have a specific target, I suppose, in mind, like a specific reason for going in, and then you're lucky. They don't just let anybody. It's not like I could write to the Pope and say, "Here, Mr. Popey man, could you please let me in? I want to have a look at this book that I believe that you've got in your vaults." He's going to go. Who? First of all, who is she?
Who are you?
Second, or it wouldn't even get to him. It would be like put straight into the shredder. It's not. It's not going to. It's not going to ever be a possibility, unfortunately, for people like me and you. But if you was an academic looking for something specific, you have to get permission to go down there.
Yeah, but then only if it's in their favour, I would have thought. Because even if they wanted to research, for example, the bloodline of Christ, they'd be like, "No,
they're probably going to go, no, we ain't giving that secret away."
Exactly. So it's got to benefit them at the end of the day. I would have thought.
Maybe some of the secrets are too sensitive for people. It's just too sensitive an area, but who knows what's down there? Again, a whole myth and legend has surrounded this particular library, and it may be nothing what we would anticipate at all. Who knows?
We'll have to just stick with the research at the records office instead.
I'm afraid we're stuck to records offices, but we have still got some amazing libraries. You know, you can go to the British Library. In fact, even the SPR library. Do you know what I mean? Don't underestimate some of the libraries that are around that you have got access to with these books for your paper trail search for your treasures. You know, because the information that is available, all right, it might not be Vatican level type books, but you might not need those kind of books. You might just need like your local not local library, but you know, one of the bigger libraries to do your paper trail search for treasure.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe to start with, but you're going to need to dig deeper, and you'll need more bigger and better libraries.
Who knows, right? Well, with the Holy Grail, I don't think that one's ever going to get solved. I think that's one of the ones that are going to be. It's never ever going to happen, is it?
I think that was solved in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, or something it's called.
Oh dear!
Everybody! Gone forever. It's gone forever because that woman took it across the seal and it fell down a hole. Lost forever. So that's never going to make a comeback.
Going on the theory that it was actually a cup and not the bloodline of Christ, of course. Now, another one we have to talk about before we disappear for the evening is the legend of El Dorado. See, this is another one where it's like gold, isn't it? It's gold, the city of gold, and you know it's lost in the rainforest somewhere, and you know it's just sitting there waiting to be plundered of its wealth, you know.
Fair. I do remember years ago when I was a kid, there was a TV program called The City of Gold. That was about El Dorado.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But Columbia won't let you look for it. That's the only downside on this one, is that even if it did possibly exist, you wouldn't be able to go looking for it because the Colombian government won't allow you to. It's a bit like Snake Island. They won't let you on Snake Island. You have to have special permission to go on there because of all the deadly snakes. Like, we looked at this last night, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We talked about this briefly last night. And there's like 5 snakes per square metre on this island. Yeah. They're like everywhere. They're like falling from the trees and like in the water, and they're just like everywhere. It's it's a really nightmare. It's a nightmare, basically. Don't go there.
Not somewhere I'd want to go. But they've got a lighthouse there. They've got a lighthouse.
All the gold in the world, you would not get me on that island. You wouldn't. But anyway, El Dorado. So it's supposed to be this amazing city that's lost in the jungles and stuff like that. But is it actually a city? Because there is a story that it's actually a person and a chief who covered himself in gold dust and just washed it off in the lake.
Okay.
So it could be one or the other. Yeah, I know, right? I hadn't heard that either. But this is the thing. You've got 2 possibilities of it.
But then also, who gave it city status? It might just be a village. Just be a village gold. Might not have city status.
All I can say is it's always been called a city. It's, you know, we're quibbling over a name now of a thing. But but these tales are absolutely fascinating, and that how amazing would it be if they did find it, definitively find it, and it just is. After watching, I'd say we started the show having watched this documentary, The Wreck of the Unbelievable, it's called. It looks, the exhibition that this is linked to looks brilliant. Well, it doesn't, the photography of it looks brilliant anyway. It might not look so great in real life. But I just thought, yes, that's exactly it. He summed it up. It's belief. It's belief that leads you on a treasure hunt. It's that drive, that quest that captures your soul and keeps you going when you're not finding anything.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yep. On that bombshell, I think we've come to the end of the show.
Right, a little early, but if you want to carry on.
Well, we've got 6 minutes to go through what's coming up for the rest of the week.
Okay, so what have we got for the rest of the week? Well, tomorrow evening is a Wednesday. Haunted Histories is on, talking all about Grendon Hall with the lovely Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett is coming on to talk all about that one. I believe they investigated it together.
Cool.
So that one will be interesting to hear about. Then on...
Well,
we've got quite an exciting week this week because on Thursday evening we've got a double whammy for you. We've got a 9 o'clock PSH radio with Saz and Aaron Lockley from the Human Canvas Tattoo coming on to chat with Carl and Sam all about everything that they've been getting up to. After that, we have a pop-up show going live at 10:30 from the Haunted Antiques Research Centre. Because you are going up there for 2 nights, aren't you?
I am. It's going to be absolutely amazing.
You are. You're going up there. Just the two of them, just the two lads, Paul and Richard, are going up on a road trip. They're spending 2 nights at the Haunted Antiques Research Centre. And, they're going to do a few bits and bobs while they're up there. And we're going to see what we can come up with.
Yeah, that's it. It's going to be really interesting. We're going to do an interview with Neil, the owner of the... I keep wanting to say museum, but it's not a museum; it's a research centre. So, yeah, we're gonna do the interview with him, and we're gonna see what we can get over the 2 nights. I think the first night's going to be quite a chilled and relaxed evening.
It's not, because you're Skyping me in so I can have a look around and be nosy.
Yeah, but we're gonna sort of see if anything happens without us trying to interfere and make things happen. And then if anything happens, we're going to investigate on the Thursday night.
Ooh. So that is happening over the next couple of days. Then on Friday evening, the Madcap Friday Fun and Frolic Show, the Dark Mirror Show, is talking all about parallel dimensions, which is different from portals and vortexes, which we spoke about the other week. This is like an extension of that show. So, yeah. That's what we're talking about on Friday.
That's been in the paranormal news recently as well. About certain countries experimenting on the dimension stuff.
Oh, there's been stories about that over the years, though, isn't there? Like loads and loads of years.
Well, there has, but more so recently. I reckon I heard about your show and thought, yeah, we'll put that out today.
Well, they're obviously experimenting with a can of beans and a whisk to help break through the parallel barriers that link worlds together. Oh
no, that's time travel. Got it all wrong.
No, mate, I have made a machine that could do it all with my can of beans and a whisk, is all I'm saying.
Oh dear.
That's how relevant I feel that is.
Well, because I've not actually started packing yet for the trip tomorrow, so.
Well, Richard's ready and raring to go. Is old Rich? He's all over it.
Richard was ready yesterday. He told me.
Oh, he loves a road trip. Anyway, if you miss any of our shows on Parasearch Radio, you can catch up with them on Spreaker, or you can go over to our YouTube channel. Whilst you're over there, you can find 2 channels. You've got Archive Parasearch and Parasearch Radio. And while you're over there, all you need to do is click, like, share and subscribe. And that's my bit done. Carry on, finish your show.
Cool. I just want to thank everyone for being in the chat room, and for those that weren't in the chat room, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening as a podcast as well, if you indeed done that. So, thank you, Kerry, for turning up.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me again.
What's next week's show about? I can't quite remember.
Oh, hello. What are we talking about? Oh, I haven't got it written down.
Oh, what on earth are you going to do?
I don't know. I'm going to have to do some research, aren't I? And find out what we're doing for a start.
Yeah, no. Next week, isn't it the Vanishing Bodies?
Oh, yeah, we're going to our Vanishing Bodies thing. Yes. Yeah, we're going a bit gruesome. We're going a bit more dark and gruesome.
Well, that's it. We've got 3, isn't it? A trilogy of shows starting next week with the dancing bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Then the week after that is going to be Burke and Hare.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to be discussing the week after Missing 411.
Yes, we are going to be talking about that. This is a new thing on my spectrum of I didn't know about this, and then the lads brought it to me, and I was like, oh no! And then when we started looking at it, I was like, oh yeah, let's talk about that. So yeah, we've got like sort of like a trilogy coming up.
Yeah. Our first trilogy. Awesome. So anyway, enough rambling from me. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Kerry. And it's good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.